this is Let's Talk Music. I'm here with Mychael Gabriel. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you.
Matt, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So, you are quite an accomplished artist. I was going through your press release, and I mean, you kind of do it all. You're a singer, songwriter, producer,
Yeah.
multi instrumentalist. Is there anything in the music business that you don't do?
Oh, man. In this industry, you have to be one that's able to switch hats pretty quickly and be able to take on different roles in order to kind of sustain a career.
Right.
And so I've had the honor and the pleasure of being able to wear multiple hats for a long time. And I feel like it's only made me a better person. It's made me a better at my craft, a better musician, a better producer, a better engineer. Because when you're able to get your hands underneath so many different things, it can only make you better.
Right.
Yeah. So
So let's you just released a new album, Genesis.
yeah.
It's a 12 track album, which is uh was that an LP?
So it's my first debut album.
Mm-hmm.
It's 12 tracks. Yes, it's a multi-genre record
Mm-hmm.
by design because I'm inspired by so many different types of music. So this record was really important to me. I've always wanted to put out an album, but it wasn't until 2020, like a lot of different people, we have all this kind of time on our hands, and we're rethinking our lives and reevaluating our situations. And for me in particular, I thought, you know, I've been doing this type of thing, supporting other acts for so long, and kind of propping other people up. And I thought, what if I just took the time to do it for myself? And that's kind of what birthed the idea of, creating this album, Genesis, that you hear today.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Sunday Afternoon is the first single off of it, correct?
Third single, actually.
Third.
So, yeah. So we put out a single by the name of Celebrate. That was the first single. Let There Be Light is kind of a 1970s sort of rock
Mhm.
influenced vibe. And Sunday Afternoon is kind of like the slower, tempo sort of ballad sort of vibe.
Yeah, I actually I did listen to Let There Be Light and Celebrate. Another one that I kind of actually really enjoyed was Ghost in the Midnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me about Sunday Afternoon, man. What's what's the inspiration behind it?
There's so many. I love polysemantic storytelling. So ideas and stories with more than one meaning.
Hmm.
So the record in and of itself is a biblical allegory of sorts. That's one of the reasons it's called Genesis after the first book of the Bible. The
Right.
other reason it's called Genesis is because it speaks to my origin as an artist and a songwriter. And then the whole album is just about the human experience. So Sunday Afternoon is one of those tracks that, like, we can all relate to what it feels like to be in a relationship, the ups, the downs, the highs and the lows and everything. And so I was sitting at my piano one day thinking of songs and ideas and concepts to put into this record, and I started writing this sort of love song. And I said, it'd be funny to just kind of have the first verse be like really sappy. Like, what's one of the sappiest things you could say? And I thought, it's like, oh, wow, you know, I've never heard someone say hello the way that you say hello. Oh my gosh, I'm just kind of floored by just that, something so simple. And I was like, okay, because that's kind of how it feels when you're in the beginning of a relationship. It's a honeymoon period, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, but you don't stay there. Everybody knows that. And
Right.
so that's kind of what the second verse is about. It's like, okay, now let's flip it all on its head and let's make a mess of this story completely and let's just tear it to shreds. And then, because the human experience is, what is it if we don't have hope? Right. So there's this kind of light at the end of the tunnel. It's kind of a choose your own adventure sort of song in the way that it ends, because there's no resolution to the story. And you're kind of left at like a fork in the road, so you can maybe choose to mend the relationship, choose to go the other way, whatever it is. And I wanted it to be kind of open ended. So that's kind of the idea of the song in a nutshell from a songwriting perspective. But there's all sorts of symbolism kind of hidden and tied throughout the whole record. In the video that I released, I'm not sure. Have you seen the video?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a veiled woman as well,
Hmm.
right? And so that's supposed to, represent, all that is holy, and then there's a veil in between us, sort of thing. And yeah, that's also how it can kind of how a relationship can kind of feel. It's like, am I even worthy of kind of taking care of this thing, or am I going to take care of it? Am I going to ruin it? Just all sorts of different things that listeners and people that want to dig a little bit deeper can kind of marinate on.
I really like that.
Yeah.
That's a really good explanation. I'm kind of a I guess hopeless romantic, so
Yeah.
I like music that I can jump around to, and I like music that I can just sit back and like makes me think. So
Right. Yeah, me too.
that's pretty awesome. So I read this. I mean, you've done several collaborations: Stevie Wonder, an Ohio Man, John Legend, Snoop Dogg, George Clinton, Ringo Starr.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that like, man? Working with them kind of people, them kind of like big names.
Yeah, it's humbling every time, I feel like, is the best way to explain it. Um because a lot of these names I've grown up listening to their music and have been inspired by their music and them as artists. And so to have an opportunity to be in the same room with them or work in a project with them, I mean, it's kind of surreal.
Hmm.
But one thing that I found in pretty much every one of those names that you mentioned, especially, is that the ones with the most talent are also the ones that are the most humble.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that was something that was I, I was just so impressed by the way that they carried themselves, because there was no ego, it was just and that was like a huge sort of that was eye-opening kind of experience for me. um I can't really say it any better. The ones with the most talent were also the ones that were the most humble. And so there's some sort of correlation between, those two things that I just felt really interesting.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you would think that the ones that have been around forever, like Clinton and Ringo Starr and Stevie Wonder, that there would be that ego issue, and I mean that's
Right.
really cool to hear that they were the most humble. Because I mean,
Really, yeah, very much so. It was really that it just made me even more inspired. I was like, man, that's really dope.
so with your songwriting process, you said that you sat down at your piano. I noticed in "Let There Be Light" that you rip off a pretty good guitar solo. So
Thank you.
when you're sitting down with your piano or your guitar or whatever, which one do you inspires you the most to write, or is it just you got to be sitting by yourself somewhere and thinking, this is what I want to put down?
Well, inspiration strikes in the most it can strike anywhere. And sometimes it's in not the most convenient situation. So sometimes at the grocery store or at the market,
Right.
and thank God we have these nowadays where I just have a recorder in my pocket to get the idea down. But a lot of my ideas start off as me just vocalizing something. And then, when I get a chance to get down to the studio, then that's when, I'll pick up an instrument and whatnot.
Okay.
But almost every song, like the actual process, it all starts with feeling and vibe being at the forefront. And so one of the reasons that this record is a multi-genre record is because genre is just, I look at it as another tool uh to use in songwriting, similar to the way that I would look at a guitar, piano, or drums or bass. um it's just a conduit to kind of get the internal expression out, right? And
Mhm.
so some genres lean more to a certain feeling more than others, so if I want to rock out, it's going to be a rock song, like if I'm getting those vibes, that sort of feeling, that sort of energy, I'm just going to lean that way. And that's kind of what happened with Let There Be Light.
Mm-hmm.
I grabbed my guitar. I was like, I know how I want the record to open. I love going to live concerts where it's like guns blazing right out the gate. You gets you right into it from the get go. And I knew that's how I wanted to open the record in the first couple tracks. And so I was like, okay, what does that feeling feel like? And I just started, noodling. And then I found that riff. I landed on that riff that you hear throughout the song, Let There Be Light. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I was like, okay, well, I can't move on until I hop on the drums. And okay, now I got to add the bass. Okay, now I got, more meat to the bones. Okay, let's keep going. Now I'm in the zone. But every song is a little bit different. But generally speaking, it all starts with the feel and the vibe that I'm going for.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, like, at what age, man, did you, decide, hey, I'm gonna play music? I mean, what was your, I guess your kick in the seat of the pants to say, this is what I want to do.
Right. So for me, it's I had a sort of unique situation in that music has always been a driving force in my life from the time that I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
My parents worked on the Purple Rain World Tour.
Mm-hmm.
My father worked in Prince's camp. My mother worked in Sheila E.'s camp. And those two met and fell in love while on the road working on that tour. My father uh, started as personal security for Prince, ended up becoming his manager and president of Paisley Park over time. My mom was childhood friends with Sheila E., grew up in the Bay Area, moved down to LA together, was her co-lyricist and road manager.
Oh, okay.
Um, so my parents kind of, were also in the industry, not musicians, but very supportive of my interest in music. And I remember, being a really young boy, just a toddler, and like popping in, the VHS tape of the Sign of the Times concert film
Right.
and holding my plastic guitar upside down, left-handed backwards, trying to, mimic what I saw on screen. So there was this inspiration and just intense interest in music from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
And I started playing guitar when I was about 6. I think my parents put me into lessons. And I started with classical and ended up moving on to electric guitar. And that's where I really found like my first love as an instrument. I was like, oh wow, because I was it was Suzuki style lessons,
Mm-hmm.
which I have an appreciation for now that I'm a little older. But at the time, I was like, this doesn't sound like Jimi Hendrix. Are you sure this is what he played? This is how he got that sound? I'm like, I don't know. And then I heard the sounds of electric guitar echoing down from the hallway of the music school. And my dad looks at me and he's like, "You want to play like that, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think that's the ticket."
Yeah.
um, but yeah, playing guitar, led into a passion for songwriting, which led into a passion for uh, audio recording and learning to appreciate what it takes to even make it sound like those iconic records. So for me, songwriting was happening kind of in conjunction as I was fiddling around and learning guitar, but it started to become more serious at around age 10 or 11. I had an 8-track tape recorder and I was just baffled by like the fact that my tapes didn't sound as good as these records and I couldn't figure out why. And then I discovered, oh, there's such a thing as like audio recording. So, I upgraded to like SoundForge on my PC and I was like, this still isn't cutting it. And then I, went to audio engineering school to like really learn the real deal. And then accidentally sort of stumbled into a career with this. Um, so I feel like I went on a tangent,
Oh, you're
but
fine.
yeah, that's a little bit of my backstory.
I mean, that's why it's called Let's Talk Music. It's not just questions of, your typical interview. I like to, learn about you and more than what I see in a press release. Like I
Right.
I had already seen, about your parents and stuff, and which I was like, wow, I mean, because I remember as a kid, Matter of fact, I actually played it tonight on my way home from work. Sheila E's Glamorous Life.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, and I mean, I was always a Prince fan. I mean, very, very talented man. So, I mean, you did definitely had a fortunate upbringing with, being around that type of music. And I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, it shows in your craft. I mean,
Thank you.
you seem to be um like when I was watching the Let There Be Light solo, I mean, you were just at it, man. And I was like, this guy's like a rock guitarist, but and then I'm trying to think, okay, what genre would I put him in? And like you said, the album is a multi-genre, and I really just I couldn't the best I could come up with was like maybe a pop rock.
Sure, sure.
So, I find you extremely fascinating. I mean, it's very seldom that you meet people that, can do it all, and which brings
Oh,
me to my next question. Like if, you're out on the road with this new album, obviously you can't do everything at once. So
right.
you're gonna obviously hire a live band for your background, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that live band element is especially is so crucial, I think, to um being able to present and represent the music in the way that I feel that it needs to be
Mm-hmm.
presented. I kind of cut my teeth on this whole sort of I've been the lead guitarist for Sheila E for nearly a decade. And yeah, and so that live real music aspect is so near and dear to my heart and such an important and crucial piece to present, like I said, presenting the music in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there it's gonna be, it's not we're not doing it's not a track show type of vibe.
Right.
It's like a rock out, sort of, live band vibe.
Now, do
Um,
you already have some musicians lined up, or you
I
got?
do. I do. I can't reveal, any players or anything yet. But that's something that's in the works.
Okay.
Because live performance for 2023 is something really important and crucial. That's I can't wait to happen
Oh,
this
I
year.
bet.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's like it's a huge way of getting yourself out there too. I mean,
Yeah.
social media and whatever, but it's, I mean, it's kind of like back in the day watching MTV.
Right.
You're like, oh man, this is a really cool video, and but then you see like the stadium, the live stadium videos that they did, and you're like, oh,
Right.
that looks so awesome. So I mean,
Yeah.
people they get a feel for you through social media, through YouTube, through Spotify, but it's the live shows I think that really just sets in when you're like, man, this dude's awesome,
Yeah. You're so right.
and
Um, and
live music is just it's there's just an element to it, man. I mean, it's being around other people that are there for the same purpose,
right. It's
and
unifying.
right, and then
Yeah.
energy that as the artist and the crowd we give to each other. I love it.
Yeah, me too. Well, when the pandemic hit and a lot of us musicians were in denial at first. It's like, oh, okay, well, summer's summer looks like it's kind of out of the picture for 2020. It'll be okay though. We're gonna come back in the fall. Everything's gonna be fine. Okay, well, the fall is gone now too. Okay. Winters was not gonna be too busy anyway, but everything will be fine in 2021. We were in denial the whole way through. And something I found was I didn't realize how much I missed live touring until it was gone.
Right.
Because we all we're on tour and we all complain about the travel and the no sleep and everything. And the reason we do it is because we get such a rush from the actual performance, like you
Mhm.
said, feeling the energy from the crowd. And it's just like it's such a unifying and cool experience. There's not really anything like it. And so that's the fun, the actual show. But touring in and of itself can be somewhat tasking, physically
Oh,
tasking.
oh, yeah.
But man, I even missed the travel days. I was like, man, it's like it was a part of my life that I didn't realize I missed until it was gone. And so with this record, you know, it's it's been a process for me, writing and recording it all, releasing it out into the world, the next logical step, and to kind of bring it into full completion. Um, it would be a tragedy not to play and perform these songs live.
Right.
It's I feel like at this point it's like something that needs to happen. So we do actually have some gigs lined up for the summer, and we're slowly kind of adding more. I'm constantly touring as well with Sheila as well. I leave in a couple days, actually next week, and then we're gone until like March. And so like it's like fitting it into multiple different tour schedules and whatnot, but it's going to be happening.
Yeah, it's so you're out of Minneapolis, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so this, I mean, hitting down here in Columbus, Ohio wouldn't be too far out of the realm of possibility.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, I'll have to reach back out to you because I think I'm actually playing a gig with Sheila down there in the coming months. So,
Oh my
maybe we
God.
can, yeah, maybe we could have you down for that one.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I mean, so I was a huge fan of Sheila back in the day, man. I was like, I was a young boy, and I mean, she was hot, and she
Man,
played
I
she played drums, and
hasn't skipped a beat. Man, I mean, my live shows with her, it's like every time I feel tired, I just look at her and I'm like, okay, how is she doing a backflip on the stage right now? It's a wild and crazy show. So much great energy.
years of practice, man. I mean,
Yep.
it's but no, I mean, you've also been featured on radio shows, which I actually listened to one that you did about 3 years ago. I can't remember the station, but you've been on radio shows, you've been on award shows. Your work was featured on DreamWorks Masterclass.
Yeah, I worked with DreamWorks Animation. I think it was on Madagascar 3 and Boss Baby and um Masterclass. We did another thing with Sheila actually.
Hmm.
Yep, it was her drumming masterclass that I was a part of. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So, I mean, with all the experiences, do you feel like you've kind of you've accomplished everything you want to accomplish, or do you feel like there's still a long road ahead of Mychael?
Man, I feel like I'm just in a constant state of seeking forward progress and just evolution and growth. I think I like we all should be, I guess.
Right.
Um it's not until I look back every actually to just be frank, when I'm in it, everything just kind of feels like work. Even if it's fun work, it's still like
Still a job.
in reality, it's work. Even like when we did the Grammys or we did the opening for the Super Bowl when it was held here in Minneapolis. It's like not until you look back that you go, huh, I guess that was actually kind of cool. You know, like when you're in it, you're like, okay, we gotta, okay, you learn this, you learn that, and get, because a lot of times I'm in a position where I'm doing some of the arranging, where I'm have to make sure other people know their parts, and sequencing a show. My level of responsibility sometimes is you know depending on what it is, especially when we've done these sort of bigger things,
Hmm.
it's up there. And so my mind is just thinking about all the things that need to be done, and not let alone like I need to make sure I know what I'm doing. And so like when you're in it, you're just in it, you're just cooking in the kitchen, and it's not until afterwards that you go, oh wow, like that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But by then you're like, okay, well now we let's keep going. And
Right.
so I guess that's where I am now.
Well, and that's a conversation I've had with other musicians is that a lot of people look at it as, oh, you're this big superstar and you got all these people catering to you and blah 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 blah. But what they don't realize is it's like you said, it's work. It's still a job.
Right.
And you was talking about how it's taxing with touring. And
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to do that sick, tired, emotion,
Right.
you
The
know,
show must go on.
right. No matter what, it's just like, somebody who works a 9 to 5, that's, dedicated to their work. They go in and, sick, or if they broke up with their girlfriend or whatever, they're going
Right.
in, hurting. But I mean, it's also admirable how you guys do this with a smile on your face no matter what. And it's because you're a performer and you're there to share your art with people, and they're there to, just, I guess, see your smiling face, get the emotion from you. Because I mean, like I said, I love live shows. I
Yeah.
mean, I love bands that, get into it with the crowd.
Right.
I know I've always thought of one of the most amazing feelings I could ever think of is being on stage and doing my song and the crowd singing back to me. I think I'm just like, man, that's got to be one of the greatest feelings in the world.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, I think I look as the audience as another band member,
Okay.
and that almost unifying experience that we're having is even though, we might not be exchanging words back and forth, it's
Hmm.
still a conversation.
Right.
Just as much as the musicians sharing notes and chords and harmonies on stage together, that's a conversation. The interaction that we get between the band, the artist, and the audience is a conversation as well.
Right. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, it is. It's a language, man. It's a
Yeah.
universal language. I think that I really, and I've said this before too to other people, but I could not imagine a world without music.
Oh, yeah. Forget about it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, because I don't know, I'm not going to ask your age or anything. I don't know how old you are, but like I grew up on uh 80s music. I was
Yep.
born in the late 70s, but I mean, 80s and 90s I think were just some of the best music put out,
I totally agree. I totally agree.
and
Absolutely.
it's like, uh, man, I remember the first time my mom come home with Michael Jackson Thriller, and I opened up the album and he's laying there with that tiger, and pulled the
Yeah.
album out. I mean, I was so excited. And it's like there's there's not there's not a whole lot of things in life that can do that to you,
Right.
or something that you hear touches you so much that you cry, or that makes you get goosebumps.
Yeah.
That's what's great about music. And it is, it's just, you guys as musicians, I don't think a lot of them realize how much they mean to people. You,
Sure.
because I've heard stories of people, well, you saved my life this time. You did this, you did that, all
Right.
because they listened to a song that really touched them.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the power of art in any form.
Right.
So
Well,
my hat's off to you, man. I mean,
thank you.
you
Yeah.
know,
Well, I think to your point, I feel like there's times where the music it becomes bigger than all of us.
mm-hmm,
Even sometimes the people that are responsible for writing it and putting it out there to bringing it to life, it can become bigger. Because like I believe, like I've had this experience in the studio, I've had it on stage, where it's like a transcendent feeling, and it almost feels like it's a spiritual thing.
yes,
And I think that's one of the reasons it's so unifying. And we say music is a universal language. It connects us because there's something underlying in there that, just, you might not be able to fully formulate the words for it, but we can all feel it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was looking, just a glance at your numbers. I mean, within 12 days on Sunday afternoon, you got like 7.5K, and you got 40K on Let There Be Light, 24,000 monthly listeners on Spotify.
Yeah. We're trying to keep the ball moving, get the word out there.
That's I mean, that's something to be proud of. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been doing this, I'm not nearly as, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? out there as you are with every social media and everything, or getting around touring. But I'm happy with 106 subscribers so far. I'm like, hey,
Yeah,
because this is just a hobby for me, and I guess my way of being close to music.
yeah.
So, Michael, I am going to go ahead and let you go for the evening. Make sure that you hit me up if you guys come to Columbus. I would love to
I
come.
absolutely will, Matt.
And thank you so much for sharing with me, man. I mean, this was a very nice talk, very nice experience, and I thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I'm truly honored that you took the time to just sit down and chat with me. I,
Hey,
I really like the, conversation
yeah,
aspect.
that's what that's all part of it. I think that I've watched so many interviews over the years where they're like, questions and stuff, and I'm like, man, why don't you throw something a little personal?
Yeah,
It's
I
all
love I love just having a conversation. I feel like, people listening, they like just genuine interactions.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So keep up
hopefully,
the good work, Matt.
thank you, and hopefully I'll get to see you when you guys come out here.
All right, sounds good, man.
All right.
All
Bye.
right. Cheers.